Good morning, dear teacher, dear community. Welcome to Blue Cliff Monastery on the Day of Mindfulness. And we thank you for your presence to join in the practice with us. So today we'll have a session of questions and answers. And that's for you to ask those questions, and we'll try our best to offer our inputs. So if you have a question in mind, please come up here. We can line up, sit on the cushion, and then we'll ask each one of you one by one to come and sit on the chair. And you can ask your question, and then we'll try our best to offer an answer, or hopefully some inputs into that question. And we have about an hour and 15 minutes to do so, so please take the time to come up and to ask your question. We also have other options. If you don't wish to come up here, but still has a question for us, you're welcome to get a piece of paper and write the question down and then pass it forward. Or there's a microphone stand on the back. You can also come there to ask your question. So there's like 3 different options for you to ask your question. We would like you to ask those types of questions that are from your heart, that are not theoretical, but practical, something that has to do with your joy, your happiness, your suffering, something that's you experience. And we'll try our best to also share from our own experience. Yeah, please don't hesitate, please come up. And before you ask a question, we'll hear one sound of the bell, so that we can settle and be back in the present moment, bring the mind back to the body, and then we can ask our question. And then again, we'll try our best to offer the answer to you. So anybody have a question, please come up. You're the first one, you can just sit on the chair. And I'd like to invite those of you who already have questions in mind, so also please come up and sit behind Merrily so that we can save some time. So at any time during the course, if you have a question, please come up, and you don't have to wait until we ask you. Okay. So let us take a moment to introduce the panel to the audience. Many of you who are here many times, you already know who we are, but we just ought to take a little bit of time to briefly introduce ourselves. And we didn't work this out in any style, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just briefly introduce to you. So next to me is Sister Toan. She's our youngest in the panel, and she's has transferred over from Magnolia Monastery in Mississippi, and she's been here a few months. And she will answer in Vietnamese, but will translate to you in English. And we're very happy that she agrees to come up to sit with us and to share her insights. And next to her is Brother Phap Khong. Brother Phap Khong has been at Blue Cliff. He's one of the first monastics that came to Blue Cliff and to help set it up. And he's given wonderful Dharma talks also, and he's always willing to come up either to give a Dharma talk or to share a question and answer session. And he's been a monk for many years now. And next to him is Sister Khoi. Sister Khoi is the oldest in our group. She's also been here for many years and always volunteered to help organize question and answer sessions. My name is Brother Phap Khoi. I also been here for a number of years, and I'm one of the reluctant ones that like to come up. But we're here for you. So let us enjoy one sound of the bell, and then Merrily will ask your question.
My name's Jonavi. I don't know if Marilee's here. So my question is about long-term relationships, like family members. I feel like I've seen a lot of teachings about like if somebody hurts your feelings, then like this is how you go about communicating with them and resolving the issue. But with someone like my sister, where she's my older sister and has caused, or I feel she has caused me a lot of suffering throughout my life, and we're both in our 30s now, and so finally, after a lot of practicing, if something in the present moment comes up, I'm able to tell her about it, and we talk about it and are able to work it through. But there's 30 years of incidents and things that still come up for me and make it hard for me to trust her, want to be close to her, want to be around her. But I don't feel like I'm not sure how, like if I should, I don't feel that it's a good idea to like bring up all the past events and then be like, okay, well in this time when you hurt me, X, Y, and Z, because I've tried that and it's just really hard and doesn't seem to solve anything. So I guess my question is, how do I resolve conflict that's been going on for my whole life with somebody, even if now things are a little different, but it's still causing me a lot of suffering. The past is still causing me to not want to connect or be close to the person in the present moment.
Thank you, Janavi. Oh, you can stay here.
Dear Thầy, dear Sangha, thank you for your question. I think that a lot of us has that kind of situation. I think among family member, there is a deep kind of history of internal formation. Often it starts when we are very young. I think first of all, what I was thinking about is like sometimes we have a pedometer in the car, and you can see when you reach speed limit of 40 mile per hour, 55 mile per hour. I think you can gauge it from your relationship with the family member is how it go into the red. I think if they have a lot of aggravation, a lot of difficulty in communication that has not been resolved for a long time, for myself, it's the best to take some distance, is to not to engage directly on the daily basis with the series of stimuli, response, impulse, because we stay with the same pattern and it's not helping. So one of the things we can do is like come to the monastery here like this and build new relationship with loving and kind people who are mindful of the speech, who are mindful of the deep listening, and create a new neural path that is easy to be in your own skin. And we solidify ourselves, our psyche, so that way we don't have a tendency to respond in a negative way or to have impulse when you deal with the stimuli. That means people talking to you about different ideas, how different opinions and so on. One of the things I do with my sibling, because I'm the youngest in my family, and I know there was some aggravation when I was very young, and we try to apologize to each other, but it's kind of deep in the psyche, and it takes some time to resolve it. So for me, I would write love letter from a distance. I find often if I talk on the phone with my brother or my sister, it's very quick, and you have a stimuli, you have something, and it implies some emotion, and you kind of respond in the wrong way, or sometimes your brother sister misinterpret what you're trying to say, kind of thing, or your family member. So writing love letter help a lot, because we have a sample from being a new type of thing, so you can water the good seeds in the other person, find the good quality of the person, and express some regret that maybe you might contribute to some conflict or to some misunderstanding with your family member. And I would say a lot of time there is the third step and the fourth step, but in the love letter you only need to do the third and the fourth step. And through a series of letters like that, you kind of soften the psyche of the other person. And it makes the other person more easily to accept hearing from you, hearing what you have to say. And then when like a pyramid go down a little bit, you feel that there is some response, some kind of... so we concentrate on the good part of the relationship first. And when sometimes you have family reunion or something, you get a chance, and then you can approach to see how it goes. And I do that with my brother, my elder brothers, who are very authoritative, and he has his own opinion. He feels he doesn't need to practice Buddhism, so, But at least he accepts me as a Buddhist monk. At first he was opposed a lot. So it has like a de-escalation a little bit. And meanwhile, you build your life, you build your happy life with new friends and nothing. To me, a family member is most a difficult, sticking issue. And we're not the only one who has it. I think, even I remember our teacher, who was a very good teacher, he rarely talked about his sibling, and he doesn't have a lot of, talking relationship with his siblings for a long time. So even though he's a Zen master, so we're not alone. So good luck. Thank you.
wanted to ask you a question about, a little closer. So about 4 or 5 weeks ago, I undertook a fairly radical change in just kind of my lifestyle. So I was having a lot of health problems. My joints were acting up. I wasn't able to focus well at work. So I tried a fairly radical diet and lifestyle change in which I stopped drinking alcohol, I stopped drinking coffee, and I ate a very restrictive diet. After about a week of this, I started to feel a lot better. I started to feel much more healthy. I was waking up in the morning feeling refreshed, and generally all aspects of my life started to feel better. I was able to stay with it for about 2.5 weeks, and then I kind of started experimenting to see what things I could let back in, and then I kind of quickly fell off the wagon on a night out with some friends, and then went through a rough patch again, and was really again struggling with all the same problems I'd had before. So my question to you guys is, how, when you know something that's good for you and you have that in your mind, and you now have a clear picture of what you actually want, could you give me some advice on how to stick with this plan, and how to continue living in this much more healthy lifestyle, and how to maybe perhaps deal with cravings when they come up? I guess, yeah, that's it. How to stay with it, and then maybe around a plan, and specifically the cravings that will inevitably come up for those past pleasures. Thank you.
So, dear Thai, dear community, dear friend, thank you for your question. For me, it has to do with suffering to make my determination. And so it's up to me if I want to continue to experience the suffering, or I want to reduce the suffering and make the suffering better. So I need, to learn ways how to support the difficulties I have. For instance, if I'm out of the path that I wanted to be, for instance, diet, or exercise, or etc., that help relieve the suffering in your body and your mind, then my body tells me that I need to do it. Because if I don't do it, then I will suffer more. And so the practice is to relieve suffering. And also mindfulness of being aware what I ingest through edible food or consciousness food. So I experience right away if it's my body react right away if it causes suffering. It's manifest right away. Like for edible food, you know right away that it causes reaction and suffering. And for consciousness food, if I hear a lot of negative things from the news or daily life issues with friends or family members, it causes suffering to my physical and mental and emotional health too. So I need to practice to keep it balanced. Again, to bring elements that bring me nourishment, healing, and well-being. And that's the path that I wanted to go in order for me to continue to practice. And I think it's our choice. I think it's easy in terms of diet. I think it's easier to practice if you live by yourself or a couple friends. But if you live like in the big community like this, if you have a certain diet, but you still have a lot of craving because of the old habit energy, so it's hard to practice to release the cravings. Like if you have a lot of chocolate cakes or different kind of cakes that's served, and you know that if you eat cakes or something like very sweet a lot, it's affect your joints because sugar give you inflammation and joints or inflammation problem. And so if you eat a lot, and then you will taste the suffering of your body, even emotional as well. So I think it's up to us to choose suffering or well-being. Yeah, thank you.
Dear teacher, dear Sangha, I ask permission to maybe add a little more to our sister sharing. I think our sister mentioned two important points, and one is the environment. So if you're able to surround yourself with the environment where your habits are not triggered, then that would help a lot. And the other is recognizing that it is a habit, and we all have habits, and habits are very hard to break. And so one of the steps the sister shared is to maybe remove yourself from the environment where those habits are nurtured, and go into an environment where there's totally a different set of conditions. So that could help you to perhaps create a new habit, which is healthy habits. And it sounds like you have started it, and you know what's good for you and what's not. But our habits are the one usually what takes us back. And so that is to keep in mind, is to be in an environment where you can grow a new habit. And I guess you've already done a good step that you come here, because hopefully here we don't have the sets of conditions that conducive to your old habits. It's a very human thing. All of us know that going to sleep early is a good habit, but we often stay up late because we want to do this, we want to do that, and then we wake up the next morning very tired. And then we beat ourselves up. Why did I do that? Even though I know that it's not good for me. But I mean, that's why. That's why you have to put yourself in a new environment, and also you have to set up some regulations, some rules for yourself to follow. And a point I want to add is also very helpful to be surrounded by those who are helping you to go into a more healthy direction. So that means not limit yourself hanging around people who like to drink, for example. And that you can do that temporarily, remove yourself from that environment so that you can grow a new habit. And once you're stronger and you know what to decide, you know what's good for you, and then you can come back to that old environment without being influenced. But maybe the first during the first period, maybe, I don't know, 6 months, a year or something, that to completely remove yourself from that environment. And I think that might be helpful to transform the old habits. Yeah. Good luck. And thank you for asking the question.
Any more people who like to ask questions? Can come up. Maybe even the second person after Mom.
In psychology, when we talk about attachment, it's about how we relate or have relationship with others. And there's a good attachment and not so good attachment, and how we relate to our friends and everyone around us based on how we relate to our parents when we were young. After I live here for 9 months now, I get confused a lot because I led to believe that attachment is not good here. It's happened with so many people that I get close to here, and all of a sudden it's go opposite to avoiding. We're avoiding each other, and it's hurt me so much. So would you please explain the attachment in Buddhism? How does the attachment have not so good reputation here? Thank you.
Kính bạch sư ông, kính thưa các thầy Visco đại chúng, con xin được trả lời câu hỏi bằng tiếng Việt.
Dear Thầy community, I'd like to share an answer to the question in Vietnamese.
Có những cái mối liên hệ mà mình chơi với nhau rất là thân, nhưng sau đó thì mình cảm thấy là người kia làm khổ mình và bỗng nhiên làm cho mình bị tổn thương.
Sometimes you can be close to someone, as in a relationship, different types of relationships, and you can be very friendly toward each other, but at some point you are hurt by the other person.
Và mình cũng không có biết là tại sao người đó lại làm cho mình tổn thương như vậy.
And we don't know how that person came about to cause you suffering.
Thì khi con được thực tập và học hỏi thì con thấy khi mà mình có thực sự hiểu thì mình mới thương được.
And in my practice and my learning and practice, I see that when I'm able to understand the other person, then I will be able to love that person.
Và thật sự ra những cái tổn thương của mình là phần chính chứ không phải là từ nhiều người khác làm cho mình.
And the majority of the hurtful feelings that we experience actually come from ourselves and not the other person.
Mình có những cái tổn thương từ nhỏ.
We might have wounds from the past.
Và mình có những cái sự sợ hãi mình chưa thể nhìn thấy được.
And there are also fears that we're not able to recognize.
Và mình cứ để cho mình ở trong cái sự lãng quên và mình không có đủ thắp sáng cái chánh niệm để cho mình thấy được lúc đó mình đang là đòi hỏi hay là mình đang là cần cái tình thương đó.
And if we continue to live in forgetfulness and not able to cultivate enough mindfulness, we continue to dwell in that state of mind and not wondering why we need attention and love from another person.
Nhiều khi là khi mà mình chơi thì mình rất là ngộ nhận rằng người đó là cái người mình cần.
And sometimes when we spend time with the other person, we might misunderstand that. We might think that that is the person that would resolve all of our needs.
Nhưng mà mình không hiểu đủ người đó và chính bản thân mình cũng không hiểu mình, cho nên mình làm khổ nhau.
And we might not understand that person fully, and also we might not understand ourselves fully. So that's why we create suffering for each other.
Khi mà nói tới cái chữ vướng mắc và mình cảm thấy là mình muốn chiếm hữu người đó thì mới gọi là vướng mắc được. Còn nếu như mà mình thấy bình thường hai người chơi với nhau thân và cần sự giúp đỡ của nhau và hiểu nhau thì chưa phải gọi là vướng mắc.
So in our community, when we consider something as an attachment, that means there is some romantic involvement. We want to possess the other person for ourselves, and that is a term we define in the community as being attached to someone.
Và giữa nam và nữ và giữa nữ và nữ cũng vậy. Khi mà mình thật sự muốn chiếm hữu người đó cho riêng mình thì mình sẽ khổ thôi.
And otherwise it's not considered as an attachment. And when there is an attachment happen between a man and a woman, or even two women, that's when there is a feeling of obsession. So that's when we get into trouble.
Khi mà con trở về sự tập đó thì con thấy rằng là mình có cái sự tự do ở trong mình rất là nhiều, cho nên mình hễ mà ai đó mà cảm thấy muốn chiếm giữ mình đó, thì mình cảm thấy mình muốn đẩy người đó ra liền.
And for my own practice, I see that I treasure my freedom, my space, and when I am befriend with someone, and when I feel there is an attachment going on, when I feel like the other person wants to possess me, then my natural tendency is to push the person out because I treasure my freedom.
Cho nên có những cái thành phần là khi mà mình đến thì mình cứ tưởng họ sẽ là của mình, cho nên mình muốn cái gì họ cũng phải chiều mình, nhưng mà thật sự ra mình không có hiểu rằng người đó rất là muốn tự do.
Because sometimes we might misunderstand. When we get to know someone, we naturally feels like we want that person for ourselves, and that person can solve all our problems. But we might not understand that person needs his or her freedom.
Và vì vậy cho nên mình đến với nhau nó có một cái sự lúc đầu thì rất là thân thiết, nhưng sau đó thì trở thành một cái không có tốt vì cái sự chưa hiểu nhau.
And so perhaps when we first come together, there's a lot of friendliness, but at some point, because of misunderstanding, then that relationship is dissolved.
Thì cái sự tập của con là cho người đó thời gian và cho chính bản thân con không gian để thực tập với cái sự từ bi trong mình.
So if I was in that situation, I would offer myself space and offer the other person space, and to grow, to cultivate more compassion for myself and for the other person.
Con không có bỏ người đó, nhưng mà con sẽ tìm cơ hội để giải thích cho người đó hiểu mình hơn.
And I would not shun that person, but I would find opportunity to share with that person so that there's more understanding.
Và một cái nữa là con sẽ tìm hiểu những cái gì mà họ đã trải qua để con có thể giúp được hơn là mình bị lệ thuộc vào họ.
And I would also learn about that person's past experience, what he or she has gone through, so that I can understand more.
Yeah, đó là cái thái của con. Cảm ơn đại chúng đã
So that's my offering.
Dear Thai Dear community, I would like to share my view a little bit about attachment. I know when we were children, we are very attached to our parents because we depend on them. We are helpless. Our parents guided us, everything, and so we take refuge in our parents. And as we grow up older, that energy is still alive in us. So when during our life, when we encounter, and we all need good friends, true friends in our life to nourish our life. And so when we encounter or we make friends with others, and we get along, we understand each other, we went through up and down together and support each other. And so I see that all human beings, we all have attachment energy in us because we need love and support, especially during a difficult moment in our life, and when we have someone capable of listening and understanding, so we kind of like attach to that person because we have that need, like when we were little, we depend on our parents to survive, and that habit's still alive. As living in a spiritual community, as a monastic practice, we live with 19 sisters or more than one community members, and so the practice is in building sisterhood and friendship among in building relationship among with each other. Our practice is to do it with moderation, because all of us have bond feeling, affinity, bonding So we have some kind of attachment. And what we learn from our teacher, we can have that attachment, but not to go past red light. You know, if we go beyond the red light, and if our relationship causes us suffering and cause our family members suffering, and our community suffering, then we need to look into our relationship, how we build it daily. And our practice is to establish relationship with all the members. But of course, it's not easy to cultivate the energy of inclusiveness or equanimity, because our habit is to spend time and to take refuge in those that we feel comfortable and that we are bonded to. But at the beginning, our practice, at the beginning, it's okay to do it with one person like that. But our practice is to go beyond just for one or two person, because we all sibling in the same member of the family and the community. Yeah, so that's what I would like to share. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Zechariah. I'm not really one for group speech, so I apologize if my nervousness surfaces a little bit. But yeah, my question is, it's in relation to entertainment. And yeah, I've spent the past couple of weeks in the Temple Forest Monastery, and there's really no form of entertainment there. They're pretty against it, which I see is pretty understandable. And I'm coming here, just having that piano sitting in the corner is very, it's very distracting. Well, not distracting. It's a whole hodgepodge of emotions. And then, never mind. But yeah, so yeah, just having that piano over there is very, it's really shown me how I've approached music and entertainment as a whole. And it really does seem to be born of some form of aversion to my own suffering and craving to participate in some form of beauty, which I don't think is a very sustainable mode of being. It's a form of pleasure that's born not from equanimity, but from, I think, an unwholesome state of mind. And I think it's why we see so many entertainers who are just not necessarily, they don't have a healthy mind. People like Jimi Hendrix or Rachmaninoff or Beethoven or just name after name and person after person who just are not very stable beings. And it's just a big goal of mine in life is to get into the harp and music thanatology and just help people, because it's very beautiful and it brings joy in so many people, and it's not a bad thing. But I think what it's born of can be quite negative for the individuals who are participating in playing whatever instrument or art form they're participating in. So yeah, how would you guys suggest approaching entertainment in a way that's sustainable and not from a place of suffering? I guess is my question.
So dear friends, I think I became a monk much later in life, so I have some experience of entertainment, I think, a little bit before joining the monastic community. I think each person has a different personality and character, that we inherit the seeds of habit energy from our parent, our ancestor. To me, there should be a spiritual search to know ourselves well, and to develop a certain habit energy to stabilize your mind, your psyche, in response to the stimuli from outside your five senses. We live in a society with custom, folklore, and that kind of thing, and we can choose different type of music, something to satisfy our need for the understanding of the custom, say for different culture. I usually approach music and folklore and I think from the point of view of learning like a foreign language, from learning how people bond with each other in certain community. Say we went to India for 5 weeks, so we learned how Indian people think, how people behave, and maybe interesting to see how the music or the dance from India, for example. I learned French, so I study not only just the language, but also to listen to French music and to watch some French movie, often they're very romantic, very sentimental. But you know from the point of view that to limit yourself, again, for me it has a lot to do with that pedometer. You know, just like that, you know, in a car you have things, there's a certain zone they call red zone, you know, not to exceed that much. I left Vietnam more than 40 years now, and even though I lived in Vietnam for 20 years, and I listened to certain type of music when I was young, and I'm more sensitive and influenced by those type of music. And for why I kind of stay away from that. But from time to time now I feel like I don't understand as much the Vietnamese culture. I don't understand as much. Sometimes I have to listen and play some Vietnamese music to fully understand how the Vietnamese people think, or how the Vietnamese people have emotion. So for me, I approach more like an anthropologist kind of thing. And of course we have now the monastic culture that we learn the sutra, we learn how to stabilize our mind. We're lucky in the sense that we have a structure here by having a schedule and a sitting meditation, concentration on eating, concentration on chewing, concentration on walk meditation. So we have a lot of very stable background that we can engage in a certain form of entertainment. Often many of the monks and nuns, we learn some song, folk or rock or some even, and then we change the word. So we still have the melody or something like that, but we change, adapt to our environment. So in a sense, we learn how to do in moderation, and also not to get carried away. Often we have a tendency to get carried away. I remember when I was young, I like blues a lot, and somehow the music of blues is very nice. But when at first I didn't understand the word, because I didn't have a good knowledge of English. But the more I understand English, I found that the blues has a word that's very depressing. So you take it with a grain of salt type of thing. I think to me, entertainment nowadays, like a movie, often it's a lot of gratuitous violence, and once in a while there's some important subject, I watch a lot of documentary. I think it's good. Sometimes to me, in some documentary are more shocking than regular movie, because it depicts a really violent reality of how something happening, like a war or something like that. So I think you need to see what your reaction to different stimuli. And if you think you still have a witness about that, you should curtail and do less of that thing. And like Khoi say, to substitute with something else. I think we a lot of brothers, almost every brother play guitar, and I think some of the sisters now play guitar. So once in a while we jam with people. I think Lisa is a wonderful guitar player and a folk singer. And I think once in a while we get together, we do that. I think that's very good. But moderation and substitution with different type of thing, and not getting caught just in one type of thing. And sometimes you need to see whether you are able to sit in silence or not. Some people cannot stand the silent environment of Blue Cliff Monastery, and they need to give me some entertainment, something like that. And you can see that that's because we are so habituated by that. And so once in a while, having a week at the monastery can help, to cleanse yourself a little bit, and then to have more solid background in your psyche, so you don't need to have a lot of stimuli. Thank you.
My name is Suzanne. I'm from Mauritius, a long way away. My question is regarding choices or decisions. Choices or decisions. I like to follow my heart, of course, but often my mind comes in and I tend to overthink things and lose track of what my heart first told me. And my way of doing things is often just to wait and see what unfolds, what doors open and what doors close, and then I take it as an indication that that must be the best way. My question to you is, how do you approach major decisions or choices that you have to take?
your community, your friend. Thank you for the question. I'd just like to share a little bit, and maybe our sisters or brother can add in. I can share for myself, my own situation, that I feel very fortunate to be living in a community, because most of the decisions are made by the community. Rarely do I have to decide for myself. Usually, when we live in a community, when we have an issue or a decision to make, we usually bring it to the community and have the community's help. So outside, if you have friends or family members whom you can trust, then I think that's a good source of support that we can come to and share before we have to make the decision. We can gather all the information and so that will help the process. But for us in the community, many things are decided, but that doesn't mean that somebody else is deciding for me. I am part of the community, so I am part of the decision process. But I have the good fortune of getting inputs and experience from other members, so that could help inform my decision. For example, there is a request to go to Vietnam to meet our teacher, to visit our teacher, and I expressed the wish to go, but I wasn't sure whether I should. And I'm a big procrastinator. That is something, a habit that I still need to transform. But I feel fortunate because I can just share that with the community and get the community's inputs whether I should go or not, or go now or wait. And so I take the community's suggestion into consideration. And for that matter, because the community supports me, so I will just let the decision rest with the community. If they say go, I go. If they say don't, I don't. But for a decision, for example, I need to visit home. I can also make that known, but I don't have to decide right away. I should go next month or next year. I also take into consideration of the need of the community, whether this month or next year, that time period, if there's something that's going on here that I need to be here or not. But I share all this information out to the community and get the community's input and see whether I should go now or next year. And so in that sense, I don't have so much stress in having to come up with a decision on my own. And so in that sense, it's very helpful to be living in a communal environment. So that much I can share with you. I don't know if anybody want to add anything.
Dear Thai, dear sisters, for me, I mean, if I were to be by myself to make a decision, I think it has to do with safety, or will it bring me well-being or not, the decision I make. And if I'm not sure if it bring well-being, or it might be a big mistake or life-threatening, or some kind of scary, not sure, not clear. But I think it's very important that my well-being, my health is very important. But if I happen to make it because I don't know, I don't have the clear mind or other people input, then if I make the mistake, that decision a mistake, I have to practice to accept that mistake as an opportunity and for me to learn and to grow and continue to bring well-being to my life. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you, community. Thank you, our friends who asked the questions, and thank you, the community, for your presence and your support. We shall stop here and have a little bit of rest before our next activity. The note here was it's not a question. It's just a note from the CTC to whether we should switch the schedule, because it's still raining outside, or I don't know if it has stopped. So the decision was whether to do this recitation first or walking first. I would let that rest with the sister CTC, because today the sisters host, and so I don't have to answer this. We'll let when we after we hear the three sounds of the bell and a small bell to unfold our legs and give ourselves a massage, and we'll hear announcements, and we'll find out then what's the next activity. So sisters, please decide. Again, thank you for your presence and your deep listening. We'll listen to three sounds of the bell. Oh, and thank you, panels, for offering your inputs.